It's time for the Volquest podcast, where we dissect the biggest news items of the week.
Good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast on a Tuesday with Austin Price and Rob Lewis. I'm Brent Hubbs. Glad to have you along with us. It's the Smoky Mountain Organics podcast, East Tennessee's most trusted health and wellness store, focusing on natural products and organic remedies for a variety of ailments. They've got 4 locations to serve you: Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, and of course they're in Knoxville on Kingston Pike, just down and across from Trader Joe's, right there across from Barnes and Nobles. Or you can check them out online at SmokyMountainOrganics.com. That is Smoky Mountain Organics. Guys, plenty to get to on this Tuesday edition of the podcast. We'll obviously start with Tennessee putting a bow tie on the Kentucky game. A couple of stats I'll throw out to you in a second, but as you 48 hours away from it, Austin, what's your biggest takeaway from what you watched on Saturday night, and what was just kind of a crazy football game?
Well, you're really hoping, Brent, that the Tennessee defense that they've seen all year kind of can find its way, and find some footing here, in the next 3 games, the last 3 games. Because they were very poor Saturday night, but Tennessee's offense just continues to click, and that's my biggest takeaway is the resurgence. And you see Bill Martin, the SID for football, he's putting out all those statistics every week about number of 30-yard plays versus previous years, number of 40-yard plays, 50-yard plays. It's staggering, the big plays that this offense has put together, and they're not bust plays; they're just well-designed plays, and Tennessee's players are going out and executing them.
All right, Rob, let me throw this stat at you before I get your thoughts on Kentucky. Hendon Hooker in the first half of games this season is 79 of 111, 71% completion percentage, no interceptions, 17 touchdowns, 1,291 yards.
Sounds like a guy that's playing for a coaching staff that has a plan going in.
I mean, those are PlayStation type numbers. I mean, that's beyond what Hal Mummy and all those guys were doing for years. What's your takeaway from Tennessee getting to win number 5?
I mean, several, but I guess maybe the biggest win. I mean, it's an old cliche, but you want to be playing your best football in November. You want to get better as the year goes on. And I don't mean
they remember what you do in November, Rob Lewis.
Yeah, but I mean more than that. It's just this team clearly has gotten better as the season has gone on, and I think that's a hugely positive comment about the coaching staff, about the buy-in, about kids continuing to work, and it's testament to what Heupel does offensively. What Heupel does works. I mean, I don't think Kentucky's a great football team, but they're a pretty good defense. They hadn't had 45 hung on them like they got on Saturday night in 46 plays.
Yes, that's the amazing thing.
Well, and I mean, if Jalen Hyde doesn't step out of bounds, it's 50. I mean, it's 50 points and probably 43 plays. Fewer plays than that. I mean, that's just the bottom line. If he catches that clean right there, he's going to walk in for a touchdown. Bigger surprise to you, Rob, Hendon Hooker's play, or if somebody would have said that Cedric Tillman has a 20-yard catch in each of the last 5 games?
It said, I wrote this in the 3-2-1 on Monday. It's Tillman. I mean, I'm surprised by Hooker. I mean, I think everybody is. I mean, he's probably not going to be all conference because of Matt Corral and Bryce Young, but he's played at an all conference type level. But he had been a starting quarterback in a Power 5 program before. Cedric Tillman had 7 catches for 124 yards in 3 years coming into this. I mean, he beat that in the Alabama game.
Yeah, I mean, Austin, is Tillman's production the greatest example of Josh Heupel just taking what he has and making it work? Because he's not the fastest guy, right? I mean, he's not the guy that they're going to line up if his high school tape was in there being evaluated. They're not going to go that direction. Is that the best example of Josh Heupel not worrying about what he's inheriting, but just making what he inherited work?
He's faster than everybody gives him credit for, though. I think people just tag him as the slow guy. I mean, he's not Jalen Hyatt or Javonte Payton, but he runs well. I mean, I watched Donovan Peoples-Jones for the Browns Sunday, a bigger guy who can run well enough. that High points the ball well. I mean, Cedric Tillman's just a guy that, has kind of continually grown. And it's another example, but to me, Brent, that you never write a kid off. Like, it's easy. It's easy for all of us. I'm 100% guilty of writing people off. And Hubs knows I wrote off Cedric Tillman 2 years ago. So it's a perfect example. You don't write anybody off. Like, you got to let them continue to progress, continue to get better. It's easy though to just go, nah, he's never going to play.
Yeah, but AP, I mean, you just cover the football team. I think there were a couple of guys that coached him and made hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it that wrote him off.
Oh yeah, I get it. I'm just saying, like, it's just another example though. Like, if you get the right guy with the right message, and the kid works hard and continues to kind of progress, kids can turn things around.
So it is an example of Josh Heupel inheriting what he has and making it work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And doing it in a way with, they get him the ball. He's run some goes, but like he talked about it when he came out on the locker room, just like he's made his living on comebacks and digs. I mean, like, if you look, like, go back to the end of the first half, the routes he ran there to get, and the catches he made to put Tennessee in position to kick that field goal, a field goal that, was the deciding difference in the end.
Yeah. And that 3 or 4 play sequence there, Rob, was the most atypical Tennessee thing that you will see at that point. 16 seconds to go in the half. I mean, the fact that they found a way to get into field goal range is just something that just kind of Tennessee fans. I mean, everybody's just kind of used to, you take a knee there and go to the locker room. But Josh Heupel knew he needed more points, and this offense, they can cover 30 yards in 16 seconds, or they did on those plays.
And to Heupel's credit, not just Tennessee fans. I mean, Butch, Dooley, Jeremy, they're all taking the knee there, but so are probably 90% of college football coaches, I would say.
Sure.
And I mean, but that was just a great example of him having his foot on the pedal the whole way. And again, Cedric, as AP mentioned, Cedric Tillman, I mean, a guy that it was a complete afterthought back in August for just about everybody. He gets it done, and what was it, 35 yards in 14 seconds?
Yeah, 35 or 38 yards in 14 seconds.
I mean, it was just, at the time, it felt like it could be significant, just because of the way the game was going.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he started to come on at the end of last year. He had that, the diving catch against Texas A&M. He had a nice catch in the spring game. But to produce the way he's produced the last several weeks is something that no one saw coming. And, it just goes back to, again, kind of staying with a guy and the kid believing in. I mean, he and I joked about it a few times at media availabilities about just, when he first got here, it was so obvious, Hubs, when he came in the game, they were run blocking, or they were running the ball, because all he did was run block. They never even let him run a route. He never run a route.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like you're blocking when you go in.
And he's a guy who's gotten better. I don't want to say the guy can't play, because that's certainly not the case. I mean, he's clearly gotten more athletic and has put himself in a situation where he may be in the National Football League sooner rather than later. But
well, and the one thing he does well, go back to, after that, because I asked Joe Milton, because Joe had the massive overthrows in that first game, and I said, why do y'all throw goes to Cedric Tillman compared to throwing goes to, Javonte Payton or Jalen Hyatt? And he said, because he's the one guy that can get off press man, because he's big. He gets off press man and he runs well enough.
Well, he's got his hands full on Saturday. Tennessee's got their hands full on Saturday in a lot of ways. Let's start with the offense when we look at this matchup. Rob, how does Tennessee move the ball? How does Tennessee find points against the Georgia team that I think is giving up 26 points in three quarters of football this season, in the first 3 quarters?
Yeah, they're the number 1 scoring defense in the country, giving up 6.6 per game. Number 2 is Texas A&M at just under 15. That's a huge gap, an enormous gap. I think it's going to be tough. Here, I mean, they've given up 13 points twice. That's the most they've given up. I think Tennessee will score more than anybody has this year. I think Tennessee gets to 20, but I think it'll be big play. I don't think Tennessee can line up and drive the ball on this team. They're too good against the run. And if I'm Tennessee, I'm really worried about my pass rush this week, or my pass protection this week, excuse me. I mean, to me, that. If I'm Josh Heupel leaving Kentucky, maybe even more than the defense, I'm concerned about my offensive line play and pass protection. Giving up 5 sacks in that one. What is it? That's 33 on the year. Nobody's close to that bad in the league.
Yeah, 19 the last 4 games. You had 6 against South Carolina, 5 against Ole Miss, 3 by Alabama, 5 by Kentucky. It's not just the offensive line. Tennessee's got to pass protect better at running back. They've got to get Jabari Small on the field. I don't know that Tyon Evans' ankle is going to hold up the rest of the year. I mean, he got 1 carry and couldn't go back out there after that. But they've got to have some help there, and they're going to have to be creative, Austin, schematically and some pass protection stuff to help, particularly with that inside pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, and Cade coming off his SEC lineman of the week, they got the fact that they're playing Georgia and, the emotions of that game for him. But, they're so quick off the edge, this will be a game that challenges him, and East Tennessee's best lineman. And, of course, we all know about Jordan Davis and his ability up the middle. I mean, they're going to have to help Cooper some there. The way they call plays in this game will be fascinating because as much as they want to go chunk plays, you almost, to me, want to get it out of their hands and, use the quick passing game as an extension of your running game. At least that's, my opinion.
Yeah, it's hard to do because Georgia will walk them up and play press man on you in a hurry. And so can you win that? The thing that jumps out to me most about Georgia when I look at them, all their stats are unbelievable. It's how deep they are on defense. I mean, they're rolling 9, 10, 12 legitimate dudes on the defensive front. They're playing about 9 different linebackers. I mean, they are so ridiculously deep on the defensive side of the ball. It's crazy. It's a bunch of familiar names. I mean, there are a bunch of names on there. Tennessee.
You see a guy make a play. It's like, I remember that guy from recruiting. I remember that guy from recruiting. I remember that guy from recruiting.
That's and putting the spot sheets together and working on some stuff for this weekend already. That's the first thing that jumps out, Austin, is whether it's guys last year, Nyland Green, Smile Munden, or it's Zion Logue and all these names from years past that Tennessee was involved in and couldn't get done. And those guys can legitimately play and are playing in a rotation of some kind for the number 1 defense in the country. Defensively for Tennessee, Austin, you mentioned it, not a good night at the office. Poor tackling. The middle of the field continues to be a horrific, great divide. I mean, it's like tumbleweeds rolling through the middle of the field for Tennessee defensively. 900 yards or over 500 yards given up the last 2 games in the middle of the field. Is the bottom line, Austin, this is just who Tennessee is, and maybe Tim Banks does have to be more aggressive and play less zone, or is it more of, hey, bend, don't break, hope you can hold them to field goals because, they're going to get yards in the middle of the field because that's who Tennessee is?
I think Tennessee needs to take more chances, especially in this game. Look, Georgia obviously is really good on defense. Offensively, they can still run the football. They hit you with some chunk plays, hit you that tight end stuff. They're obviously talented at that position. But I think you're going to have to bring pressure, and if you step back, I mean, Stetson Bennett's going to be very content to dink and dunk it down the field, hand it off and pick up 7 or 8 yards a pop and be methodical. I think you've got to bring some pressure and see if you can force them into some, it's got to be longer than 4th and 24. Otherwise, they give it up. But I mean, you want to try to force them into some really long situations.
Rob, is pretty clear after the 4th and 24, Tim Banks just got mad. That was almost John Chavis-like the last 4 plays of the game after he gave up 4th and 24. He just said, I'm not going out in zone coverage. I mean, they brought A-gap pressure for 4 straight plays.
And I mean, how could you blame him? What's the downside?
Right. And is that the case? Is that the case this weekend?
That is for me. I mean,
okay.
I might play it, not completely balls to the wall for the first couple of series to see, just how we match up if I'm Tim Banks. But I think like AP just said, I think you got to take chances. I don't think you can play vanilla against Georgia, and they're not great offensively, but they're really physical, and I think that's what gave Tennessee the most problems. But other than the stuff you mentioned about that's been there all year on the back end of the middle of the field, I think Kentucky's physicality up front really impacted Tennessee.
Yeah, and everybody in Athens has tried to work on finding a quarterback controversy, and there's just not one, Rob. I mean, this is perfect for how Kirby Smart wants to play football. A quarterback who doesn't make mistakes for him.
Yeah, I don't think he's beaten Uncle Nick like that with that kid at quarterback, but the kid's been really good, Stetson Bennett. And you're right. I mean, when you got a defense like that, he's perfect. I mean, you don't need for 95% of your games, he's going to be good enough. I don't think he's going to be good enough in Atlanta. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but he'll be good. He'll be good enough on Saturday. And if he doesn't, if he's in character, doesn't have three interceptions and just takes what the defense gives him.
And Rob or Austin for Tennessee, that means you got to tackle him on the scramble stuff too, because they're not going to line it up and run it with him and call a bunch of runs, but he is no problem tucking it for 10 or 12 yards, which is kryptonite for this defense.
Correct. I mean, anytime Tennessee's secondary has a little bit of success from a standpoint of coverage and keeping and the quarterback having to hold on to the ball, they can't get home. And then the quarterback just says, okay, I'll just run 7 yards, 12 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards, 13 yards. I mean, it's, the secondary will do their job a lot of times, but then the defensive front can't get home on their own. And that was, to me, like every play the other night. Wasn't it to you? They couldn't get home against us.
Hubbard, you're the stat guy. I've not seen. I mean, I don't ever remember a Tennessee defense giving up third and longs like this would have. Now, you see high third down conversion rates when you can't stop the run, and teams 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 all night long. But these last 3 games, I think this is right. They've given up 8 third down and 6s or more in each game, not 8 total. In every opponent has gotten at least 8.
Yeah, it's crazy numbers. I mean, the number that jumped out to me was they gave up 37 third and fourth down conversions the first 6 games of the season. They've given up 38 the last 3 games.
And those last 3 games, those last 3 opponents are converting 68% of the time on third down. I looked this up. Coastal Carolina leads the nation in third down conversion, and they're at 55%.
Yeah, it's just been bad. And so, I mean, Rodney Garner said it at the quarterback club on Monday. He said, listen, and none of us blaming the offense for going fast. It's on us to get off the field at some point when you're in these third down situations, particularly in the third and longs that you mentioned that they've been in, that Tennessee's just not been able to get off the field. So that will obviously be a huge part of this game on Saturday afternoon inside Neyland Stadium. Last football question before we get to a couple of hoops things, and then we'll tie it up with a little SEC talk maybe at the end here. Is outside of Georgia, is Tennessee the most attractive bowl team in the SEC that's not a playoff contender?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to the playoffs, that's who I would want. To me, that's as simple as 1, 2, 3, because Tennessee's going to travel well, and all those Florida bowls, especially the Outback and the Tax Slayer, they know, what Tennessee can do as far as fan attendance. And after last year and the investigation and all of that, I just think there's going to be a real clamor for fans to go, and I think there'll be a real clamor from bowls to want to get Tennessee because of the fans.
I would agree. I'd say Arkansas will be pretty attractive. I'd say they probably get some bowl money, those fans, that they haven't spent in a while. But I mean, Tennessee's hot. They play a great brand of football. The AP's exactly right. I mean, the Florida Bulls, they've seen it. I mean, they've seen tons and tons of orange show up to watch, kind of slightly above average football teams in bowl games.
How would we feel about the Texas Bowl, Hubs?
That's hot and cold weather, man. That could be really interesting. I've been to Texas, and there's been snow on the ground in late December, 1st of January.
Well, I mean, Hubbard, consider this. I mean, we talk about Tennessee being hot and attractive. When this season's over, we look back, they will have had a legit chance, a completely legit chance to have gone 10-2.
Yeah, I mean, because Pittsburgh was certainly a winnable game. Ole Miss certainly a winnable game. You'd like to have a Florida game back, but I think AP's nailed that one right. I mean, about that. I mean, it's like Kentucky when Kentucky sees Tennessee roll into town. They find ways to screw things. I mean, every Kentucky fan leaving that stadium Saturday night was like that. That was just seen that movie before, much the way what Tennessee fans are when they leave a Florida game, even though Florida's obviously not very good. They got a boatload of problems. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this team legitimately could have been a potential 10-win football team with a player or two here and there. Again, most important thing is it's an improving football team for sure. John Fulkerson is putting up money, Rob Lewis, for points. That could come back and cost him a good bit of money because this team might be able to score the way Rick Barnes wants Tennessee to shoot 3-point shots. They officially open the regular season tonight. What are you looking for out of this basketball team in the official first game of the season?
I mean, how many guys does he play? And I mean, how many guys does he play when it's close? I mean, not in the last 6-8 minutes of the game. And I anticipate Tennessee will be up by 25 or 30. But in the first half, how many guys get off the bench? And let me keep in mind, at last report, Fulkerson was probable, so that might impact. If he's not 100% with the thumb, you don't play. You don't play him in this game. So we'll keep an eye on that. But if Fulke plays, how many minutes does Plavsic get? What's the minute distribution like between Olivia Camwa and Brandon Huntley Hatfield? Is Zakai Ziegler really your backup point guard, or when Kennedy comes out, do Vescovi or Josiah slide over there? Really just kind of rotational stuff is what I'm most interested about in this first one.
So we'll see what Tennessee does on the basketball court tonight as they open the regular season. We'll have full coverage of that. Again, it's a basketball team that should win. And by the way, hats off to John Fulkerson. I mean, the guy's just continuing to put himself in a light where, I mean, he's going to be beloved by everyone as he is matching, putting $1 up for points that have made, giving it back to the University of Tennessee as a part of his NIL deal, a couple of NIL deals that he has. If you didn't see that story was out there a little bit. The NCAA has said they're going to restructure things. How big of a deal is that for Tennessee as you try to get towards the end of this investigation?
Don't you think it's big, Rob? I mean, if you're going to turn back over the punishment to individual conferences and stuff, I just, I mean, Tennessee again is self-imposing a bunch of stuff that I think will equal what others have done. They didn't do a bowl ban, but that's based off of the fact that, the legislation's out there to not, hurt kids for others' misdeeds, that weren't there. And so, I mean, I just feel like this is a win for Tennessee, especially with it coming out right after Tennessee decides to not self-impose a bowl ban.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add, but I strongly agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee, obviously got a pretty good idea what's coming. Now, the hard part of that is when you talk about basketball, you got a whole bunch of Division I teams in basketball, and everybody's got, everything's different for everybody, right? Some of those, smaller Division I schools have a very different lifestyle and a very different approach to things than some of the Power 5 stuff. So how all of that plays out is going to be interesting to see, but it certainly makes you feel like the NCAA may not be hearing Tennessee's case anytime soon if they do hear it. And depending on how this call to action goes about and how long it takes to get movement and some sort of direction in that case. But I thought it was noteworthy that came out on Monday following Tennessee's news last Thursday that they were not going to self-impose a bowl ban on their team. Finally, as we wrap it up, hopping around a little bit of the SEC, I mean, how big of a mess is Dan Mullen in down there? I mean, Anthony Richardson gets hurt in the hotel lobby or in the hotel dancing. I mean, that thing, I mean, LSU seems like it's in better shape right now with no coach in place than what it looks like Florida is right now.
Well, Rob, you simply don't wear Michael Jordans through muddy fields. And that's basically what Dan Mullen's doing.
I mean, I'm amazed. I mean, not that I thought Florida was fantastic, but I mean, to give up 30 and lose at South Carolina, I mean, I think we all have probably are in agreement that South Carolina is just, I mean, not very good. They're
one win away from being bowl eligible.
Yeah, but that's more about schedule and
it is.
And Florida blow it up than anything. I mean, this is an implosion, man. I mean, I'm with you, Hubbard. I mean, I would have thought that LSU was the biggest dumpster fire in the league, but at least they've got kind of some closure and a sense of direction of what they're doing. I'll be stunned if Mullen survives. But I don't know what's going on in that locker room around that team, but that's a team that has quit. I mean, that's pretty obvious just watching them on television.
Yeah, when you go and do what they did in Columbia, South Carolina, you got a whole lot of major problems stemming out there. So we'll see, Austin, how that affects Tennessee in terms of recruiting. Does Tennessee jump in there in any way, shape?
I think it's definitely helped
anybody?
him with Jordan Phillips. Phillips was trending hard for Florida there for a while, but the last 6 weeks or so, have really helped Tennessee's cause to hold on to him. I would be shocked if they're not able to at this point.
Yeah, and so what happens down there, and then what the movement is with other coaches around the conference, as we're starting to see some movements around the country, how that all shakes out. Does it shake out in enough time for anybody to really do anything in terms of flipping or looking around with the early signing period coming up? So lots of unknowns in Florida, lots of unknowns at LSU, and we'll see how that affects recruiting. We'll continue to follow that for you as well. And obviously we'll do everything in our regular schedule to get you ready for Tennessee and Georgia for a 3:30 start on CBS coming up on Saturday afternoon. That's going to do it for this edition of the Smoky Mountain Organics Volquest.com Tuesday podcast. For Rob Lewis and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody.
You've been listening to the Volquest podcast every week here on Volquest.